So my Christmas tradition of reading probably began at our house on Alder Slope on Christmas Eve with Brian Oliver and I, after a few jugs of grog or wines, trading lines of A Child's Christmas in Wales. And so that went on for a few years, and then I sold the bookstore, and Tom Hutchison had the bookstore in Joseph, and I don't know whether I told him that story or not, but Tom said, why don't you come up here and read Child's Christmas in Wales? So I did that for a few years, and Tom played, how many of you remember Tom? A beautiful slack key guitar. So I read while Tom was strung. And we did that a few years. We did it once at Fish Trap, and they actually recorded it, and it played at KPVX, my only time on. And then Gail Sport has her evening programs up at the lake. So Gail asked me to read, one time she asked me, she had something, it was like The Night Before Christmas or something. I said, Gail, I'd love to read, but I don't really want to read The Night Before Christmas. And so I found something else. And then 4 or 5 years in a row, I'd have to find something different. And I'd do a shortened version of Child's Christmas in Wales. I'd shrink it down. And then I found Stubby Pringle. And so I did Stubby Pringle's Christmas. And then that became my thing for a couple of years. And I had to read Stubby Pringle's Christmas on KWVR. And Ann said, you're going to read Stubby Pringle this year. I said, no, I'm going to find something else. So I'll tell you about what I'm going to find later. But we want to make this, this is just kind of also a thank you celebration for people that come and enjoy the Josephy Center. It's also a celebration for my friend Rod, coming out of guitar retirement. and a celebration for Seth, because he doesn't have to play music, he gets to read something that he likes. And Jim Littlepage is came in, and he's got something to read. And did anybody else bring anything that they'd like to read of their own or anybody else's? No? No? Oh. Okay. Well, here's what we're going to do. Seth's going to start off. Then Rod's going to play a tune, a Christmas tune. And actually, Jim, why don't you follow Seth? And then Rod will play a tune. And then I'll do my secret story. And then Rod will strum his guitar and we'll sing a couple together. Okay?
This is a story by Hans Christian Andersen, and in lieu of playing a song inspired by nature, I thought I'd read a story inspired by nature. This is a little bit different genre than the average fairy tale. You know, Hans Christian Andersen's stories are often adapted into Disney films, but they miss the existential dread that was at the basis of a lot of his themes. So that will not be missed in the story. Called The Fir Tree. Far down in the forest, where the warm sun and the fresh air made a sweet resting place, grew a pretty little fir tree, and yet it was not happy. It wished so much to be like its tall companions, the pines and firs which grew around it. The sun shone and the soft air fluttered its leaves, and the little peasant children passed by, prattling merrily, but the fir tree heeded them not. Sometimes the children would bring a large basket of raspberries or strawberries, wreathed on a straw, and seat themselves near the fir tree and say, "Is it not a pretty little tree?" Which made it feel more unhappy than before. And yet all this while the tree grew a notch or joint taller every year. For by the number of joints in the stem of a fir tree, we can discover its age. Still, as it grew, it complained, "Oh, how I wish I were as tall as the other trees, then I would spread out my branches on every side, and my top would overlook the wide world. I should have the birds building their nests on my boughs, and when the wind blew, I should bow with stately dignity like my tall companions." The tree was so discontented that it took no pleasure in the warm sunshine, the birds with the rosy clouds that floated over it morning and evening, Sometimes in winter, when the snow lay white and glittering on the ground, a hare would come springing along and jump right over the little tree. And then how mortified it would feel. 2 winters passed, and when the third arrived, the tree had grown so tall that the hare was obliged to run around it. Yet it remained unsatisfied and would exclaim, "Oh, if I could but keep on growing tall and old. There is nothing else worth caring for in the whole world." In the autumn, as usual, the woodcutters came and cut down several of the tallest trees, and the young fir tree, which was now grown to its full height, shuddered as the noble trees fell to the earth with a crash. After the branches were lopped off, the trunks looked so slender and bare that they could scarcely be recognized. Then they were placed upon wagons and drawn by horses out of the forest. Where are they going? What would become of them, the young fir tree wished so much to know. So in the spring, when the swallows and the storks came, it asked, "Do you know where those trees were taken? Did you meet them?" The swallows knew nothing, but the stork, after a little reflection, nodded his head and said, "Yes, I think I do. I met several new ships when I flew from Egypt, and they had fine masts that smelt like fir. I think these must have been the trees. I assure you they were stately, very stately." "Oh, how I wish I were tall enough to go on the sea," said the fir tree. "What is the sea? What does it look like?" "It would take too much time to explain," said the stork, flying away. "Rejoice in thy youth," said the sunbeam. "Rejoice in thy fresh growth and the young life that is in thee." And the wind kissed the tree, and the dew watered it with tears, but the fir tree regarded him not. Christmas time drew near, and many young trees were cut down, some even smaller and younger than the fir tree, who enjoyed neither rest nor peace, with longing to leave its forest home. These young trees, which were chosen for their beauty, kept their branches, and were also laid on wagons and drawn by horses out of the forest. "Where are they going?" asked the fir tree. "They are not taller than I am. Indeed, one is much less. And why are the branches not cut off? Where are they going?" We know, sang the sparrows. "We have looked in at the windows of the houses in the town, and we know what is done. They are dressed up in the most splendid manner. We have seen them standing in the middle of the room, adorned with all sorts of beautiful things, honey cakes, gilded apples, playthings, hundreds of wax tapers." "And then," asked the fir tree, trembling, "and then what happens?" "We do not see any more," said the sparrows. "That was enough for us." "I wonder whether anything so brilliant will ever happen to me," thought the fir tree. "It would be much better than crossing the sea. I would long for it almost with pain. Oh, when will Christmas be here? I am now as tall and well grown as those which were taken last year. Oh, now that I were laid on the wagon or standing in the warm room with all that brightness and splendor around me, something better and more beautiful is to come after, or the trees would not be so decked out. Yes, what follows will be grander and more splendid. What can it be? I am weary with longing. I scarcely know how I feel." "Rejoice with us," said the air and the sunlight. "Enjoy thine own bright life in the fresh air." But the tree would not rejoice, although it grew taller every day. Winter and summer, its dark green foliage might be seen in the forest, while passers would say, "What a beautiful tree." A short time before Christmas, the discontented fir tree was the first to fall. As the axe cut through the stem and divided the pith, the tree fell. The tree fell with a groan to the earth, conscious of pain and faintness, and forgetting all its anticipations of happiness, in sorrow at leaving its home in the forest. It knew that it should never again see its dear companions, the trees, nor the little bushes and many-colored flowers that had grown by its side, perhaps not even the birds. Neither was the journey pleasant. The tree first recovered itself while being unpacked in the courtyard of a house with several other trees, and it heard a man say, "We only want one, and this is the prettiest." Then came 2 servants in grand livery and carried the fir tree into a large and beautiful apartment. On the walls hung pictures, and near the great stove stood great china vases with lions drawn on its lids. There were rocking chairs, silken sofas, large tables covered with pictures, books, playthings worth a great deal of money. At least that's what the children said. Then the fir tree was placed in a large tub, full of sand, with green baize hung all around so that no one could see it was a tub. It stood on a very handsome carpet. How the fir tree trembled. What was going to happen to him now? Some young ladies came, and the servants helped them to adorn the tree. On one branch they hung little bags cut out of colored paper, and each bag was filled with sweetmeats. From other branches hung gilded apples and walnuts, as if they had grown there and above, and all around were hundreds of red, blue, white tapers fastened on the branches. Dolls, exactly like real babies, were placed under the green leaves. The tree had never seen such things before, and at the very top was fastened a glittering star made of tinsel. It was very beautiful. This evening, they all exclaimed, how bright it will be. Oh, that the evening were come, thought the tree, and the tapers lighted. Then I shall know what else is going to happen. What will the trees of the forest come to see me? What will the sparrows peep when they come to the windows to fly? Shall I go faster here and keep on all these ornaments, summer and winter? But guessing was of very little use. It made his bark ache. And this pain is as bad for a slumber for a tree as a headache is for us. At last the tapers were lighted. And then with a glistening blaze of light, the tree was presented. It trembled so with joy in all its branches that one of the candles fell among the green leaves and burnt some of them. Help! Help! Exclaimed the young ladies, but there was no danger, so they quickly extinguished the fire. After this, the tree tried not to tremble at all, though the fire frightened him. He was so anxious not to hurt any of the beautiful ornaments, even while their brilliance dazzled him. And now the folding doors were thrown open, and a troop of children rushed in as if they intended to upset the tree. They were followed more silently by their elders. For a moment, the little ones stood silent, astonishment. And then they shouted for joy till the room rang, and they danced merrily round the tree, while one present after another was taken from underneath. What are they doing? What will happen next? Thought the fir. At last the candles burnt down to the branches and were put out. The children received permission to plunder the tree. Oh, how they rushed upon it till the branches cracked. Had it not been fastened with the glistening star to the ceiling, it must have been thrown down. The children then danced about with their pretty toys. No one noticed the tree except the children's maid, who came and peeped among the branches to see if an apple or a fig had been forgotten. A story, cried the children, pulling a fat man towards the tree. Now we shall be in the green shade, said the man as he seated himself under it, and the tree will have the pleasure of hearing also. But I shall relate only one story. What shall it be? Ivedy Avedy, or Humpty Dumpty, who fell downstairs but soon got up again and at last married a princess? Ivedy Avedy, cried some. Humpty Dumpty, cried others. And there was a fine shouting and crying on, but the fir tree remained quite still. He thought to himself, shall I have anything to do with this? But he had already amused them, as much as they wished. The old man told them the story of Humpty Dumpty, how he fell downstairs and was raised up again and married a pretty princess. And the children clapped their hands and cried, tell another, for they wanted to hear the next story, but they only had Humpty Dumpty. After this, the fir tree became quite silent and thoughtful. Never had the birds in the forest told such tales as Humpty Dumpty, who fell downstairs and yet still managed to marry the princess. Ah, yes, so it happens in the world, thought the fir tree. He believed it all because it was related by such a nice man. Ah, well, he thought, who knows, perhaps I may fall down too and marry a princess. He looked forward joyfully to the next evening, expecting to again be decked out with lights and playthings, gold and fruit. Tomorrow I will not tremble, thought he. I will enjoy all my splendor, and I shall hear the story of Humpty Dumpty again, and perhaps even another. And the tree remained quiet and thoughtful all night. In the morning, the servants and the housemaid came in. Now, all my splendor is going to begin again, he thought. But they dragged him out of the room, up to the stairs, threw him on the floor in a dark corner where no daylight shone, and there they left him. What does this mean? Thought the fir tree. What am I to do here? I can hear nothing in a place like this. And he had time enough to think, for days and nights passed, and no one came near him. And when at last somebody did come, it was only to put away large boxes in a corner. So the tree was completely hidden from sight, as if it had never existed. It is winter now, thought the tree. The ground is hard and covered with snow, so that people cannot plant me. I shall be sheltered here, I dare say, until spring comes. How thoughtful and kind everybody is to me. Still, I wish it were not so dark and lonely, not even with a little hair to look at. How pleasant it was out in the forest while the snow lay on the ground, when the hare would run by, yes, and jump over me, although I did not like it then. Oh, how terrible it is here. Squeak, squeak, said little mouse, creeping cautiously towards the tree. Then came another, and they both sniffed at the fir tree and crept between the little branches. Oh, it is very cold, said the little mouse. Or else we should be so comfortable here, shouldn't we, you old fir tree? I'm not old, said the fir tree. There are many who are older than I am. Where do you come from? What do you know? The mice were full of curiosity. Have you seen the most beautiful places in the world, and can you tell us all about them? Have you been in the storeroom where the cheeses lie on the shelf and hams hang from the ceiling? One can run about on tallow candles there and go and thin and come out fat. I know nothing of that place. I know the wood where the sun shines and the birds sing. The tree told the mice about its youth. They had never heard an account in their lives, and they listened attentively. They said, what a number of things you have seen. You must have been very happy. Happy, exclaimed the fir tree, and then reflected upon what he had been telling them. Ah, yes, after all, those were happy days. But when he went on and related about Christmas Eve and how he'd been dressed up for the cakes and lights, the mice said, "Oh, how happy you must have been, you old fir tree." "I'm not old," replied the tree. "I only came from the forest this winter. I am now checked in my growth." "What splendid stories you can relate," said the mice. And the next night 4 other mice came with them to hear what the tree had to tell. He was growing famous. The more he talked, the more he remembered, and then he thought to himself, "Those were happy days, but maybe they'll come again." Humpty Dumpty fell downstairs, and yet he married the princess. Perhaps I may marry a princess too. The fir tree thought of the pretty little birch tree that grew in the forest. Who was to him a beautiful princess? "Who is Humpty Dumpty?" asked the mouse. The tree related the whole story. He could remember every single word. And the little mice were so delighted that they were ready to jump to the top of the tree. The next night, even more came and made their appearance. So on Sunday, 2 rats came and joined them as well. But they said, "It's not a pretty story at all." The little mice were sorry creatures. It made them think less of them. "Do you know only one story?" asked the rats. "Only one. I heard it on the happiest evening of my life. But I did not know I was happy at the time." We think it's very miserable. Don't you know any story about bacon or tallow in the storeroom? No. Many thanks to you then. The rats marched off. The little mice kept away after this, and the tree sighed and said, "It was very pleasant for the little mice sat round me and listened to me while I talked. Now that is past. However, I shall consider myself happy when someone comes to take me out of this place." But would this ever happen? Yes. One morning, people came to clear out the garret. The boxes were packed away, and the tree was pulled out of the corner and thrown roughly on the garret floor. Then the servant dragged it out upon the staircase where the daylight shone. "Now life is beginning again," said the tree, with the sunshine and the fresh air, rejoicing. Then it was carried down the stairs, taken into the courtyard so quickly it forgot to think of itself. It could only look about. There was so much to be seen. It was close to a garden where everything was blooming, fresh and fragrant roses hung above the little palings. The linden trees were in blossom. The swallows flew here and there, crying, "Climate is coming." But it was not the fir tree that meant. "Now I shall live," cried the tree, joyfully spreading out its branches. But alas, its branches were withered and yellow. It lay in a corner among weeds and nettles. The star of gold paper still stuck in the top of the tree and glittered in the sunshine. In the same courtyard, 2 of the merry children were playing who had danced around the tree at Christmas and had been so happy. The youngest saw the gilded star, ran away with it, pulling it off the tree. "Look what is sticking to that ugly fir tree," said the child, treading on its branches till they crackled under his boots. And the tree saw all the fresh, bright flowers in the garden and looked at itself and wished it remained in the dark corner of the garret. I thought of its fresh youth in the forest. It thought of its fresh youth in the forest, of the merry Christmas Eve, of the little mice who would listen to the story of Humpty Dumpty. "Past, past," said the old tree. "Oh, but I had enjoyed myself. Had I enjoyed myself while I could have done so. Now it is too late." Then a lad came and chopped the tree in small pieces, lit a large bundle, and a heap on the ground. The pieces were placed in a fire under the copper. They blazed so brightly, while the tree sighed so deeply that each sigh was like a pistol shot. Then the children who were at play came and seated themselves in front of the fire and looked at it and cried, "Pop, pop," but at each pop was a deep sigh. The tree thinking of the summer day, the forest, Christmas evening, Humpty Dumpty, the only story it had ever known, or heard, or knew how to relate, until, at last, it was consumed. The boys still played in the garden, and the youngest wore the golden star on his breast, with which the tree had been adorned during the happiest evening of its existence. Now all was past. The tree's life was past, and the story also. For all stories must come to an end at last.
Well done, Seth. Okay, Jim Littlepage, and I didn't know that Jim was a writer. I know him through our grandchildren, because Carson, his grandson, plays football with Trey, my grandson, and now basketball together. So we know each other from the football sidelines, and then today he walks with this puppy. He said, "You know, I've written a few poems." So he's got a Christmas poem for us.
I might share a couple.
Pardon?
I might share a couple of them.
Okay. Yeah.
I consider it a privilege to be able to share with you guys today. Thanks for allowing me to take the stage. Occasionally I get stage fright, but I can't remember the last time. I want to start just by a short poem that I wrote just a few years ago. And it's called Sacrificial Rose. The beauty of the rose, the stem holds up its head. The pain of a thorn prick signifies the blood that Jesus shed. The color of the rose on the cross where Jesus bled. The leaves, his outstretched arms. In prayer to God, he said, "Forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do." The beauty of the rose is what Jesus gave to you. So that's just one of my short ones that I love to start out with. And today I'm just going to take a little bit of your time. I do a lot of writing just for veterans because I am a veteran. And I have loads of poetry about veterans. I would like to share with you the one that I put in the book, which was one that I had written shortly after Vietnam. And then I'll read you the Christmas poem. I once was a soldier with a man killer in my hands until one day a bullet struck me. My blood ran in the sand. Then darkness crept upon me and death was drawing near. It was then I heard the voice of Jesus. It banished all my fear. He spoke with a voice of kindness, embedded in his eyes a true love. He told me of a place called heaven, a paradise somewhere in the sky above. Then he lifted my body from the blood-drenched sand. He took away my rifle and placed the Bible in my hand. And this is one that I wrote a few years ago at Christmas. It's called Christmas Reflections. The joy I experienced on Christmas Eve left little to wonder. What do I believe? I believe all things were created by his hands, and all things happen according to his plans. His son Jesus came and died for my soul. Because of his love and my repentance, I am now whole. Reflections of new life, his promise, my joy, all made possible by God's little boy. Born on Christmas Day so very long ago, Joseph, Mary, and God, I'm sure loved him so. The hope that was born in the manger that day, a beam in the darkness to light up the way, written words for us to follow from that Christmas past, gives meaning to life, true love that will last. All that he asks is to make him our choice. We'll know life's true meaning when we hear his voice.
Thank you, Jim. Anybody else got it? Okay. Well, many of you know Rod Ambroson as a sculptor. And at least one of you knows Rod Ambroson as a student.
Yeah, man.
Old classmates, believe it or not. So anyway, Rod's been plunking his guitar and singing at the Catholic Church in Malawi for some time. But I think it's been a while since you've been on stage here. Well, now's the time. Rod, my friend Rod Ambroson.
It's been a little bit of a while, and I do cherish my good friend Rich in ways that some of you may know and some of you may find out. That's fine too. I really still
Oh.
It's not often that you get a guy to save your life. And this song, and I'll follow up after those beautiful poems that touched my heart. And this is a song that was written by Christina Rossetti. The poem, she was a poet from England in 1872. And then the music, which is, I wish I could do it justice, probably Seth could play it on the piano and do it a little better. But then the music was written by Gustav Holst in 1906. It's a very, 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 it was cherished by the war veterans. In World War II, they would sing this song. And at one point in time, it was the best, most cherished Christmas carol in the world. In the bleak midwinter, frosty winds made moans. Earth stood hard as iron, water as stone. Snow had fallen, snow on snow, snow on snow. In the bleak midwinter, long ago, our God heaven can't hold, nor earth sustain. Heaven and earth will fly away when he comes to reign. In the bleak midwinter, a stable place sufficed. Lord God Almighty, Jesus Christ, enough for him whom cherubim worship night and day. A breast full of milk, a manger full of hay, enough for him whom angels fall down before. Ox, sheep, and camel kneel and adore. Angels and archangels may gather there. Cherubim and seraphim throng the air, but only his mother in her maiden bliss worshiped the beloved with a virgin choose to kiss. What can I give him? Poor as I am. If I were a shepherd, I would bring a lamb. If I were a wise man, I would do my part. Yet what can I give him? I will give my heart. I will give my heart. It's nice to be kind of back in the land of the living now.
It's Christmas season. You know, not every Christmas is all joy though, right? And sometimes hard stuff happens. And I'm thinking about this with the pumps and talk about the wars. Does everybody know the story of the Christmas truce in the First World War? So things peek through. And I think now, with things as they are in our country and the world, we're going to hope that things peek through again, huh? That heart and love and all that peek through. Well, I became a Hemingway fan very early, and I'm sure a lot of you, as very young men and women, bumped into Ernest Hemingway and read The Sun Also Rises, or read Adele, Broom the Bell Toll. And we're smitten, okay? And I went on and went through a period where everybody said, wow, you know, academia says, wow, Hemingway kind of, his stock goes up and down. And so every once in a while I got most of Hemingway's books from that time, and including this one, which not very many people have. This is his writings as a journalist. And then every once in a while, one time I said, I wonder if Hemingway was really good, and I picked up a book of short stories, and I read The Short Happy Life of Francis Macomber again, and I said, that son of a bitch could write. And this also war, you know, Hemingway talked about warriors. Anyway, you know, he drove an ambulance in the First World War. And then he covered the Spanish Civil War for the Toronto Star. And then, I don't know, I think that he, what did he do during the Second World War? Did he do some, I think he still covered that partially. But in between those wars, when he was writing for The Sun Also Rises, he was in Paris. I think Sun Also Rises came out in 25 or 26 between the wars. And it was a hard time in Europe where they'd lost a generation of men in that war. French, English, Germans. We can't fathom how many, I mean, it was just like you whacked out a whole generation of 18 to 40-year-olds. And that's what happened then. So, and then, you know, he, where did my, so, but between the wars, he continued to write to make a living before for The Sun Also Rises, he continued to write for the Toronto Star weekly and send these dispatches from Europe. And so I was looking for Gail's party one year for a Christmas story from somebody else, you know. And I think that Christmas on the Top of the World, my old buddy Emerson Hemingway, 1923. So that puts us right between, it's before he's written The Sun Also Rises, but he hasn't published it yet, right? And he's kind of celebrating, but not celebrating. I think Hadley is his first wife, right? Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. Hadley's in this. Christmas on the Roof of the World. While it was still dark, Ida, the little German maid, came in and lit the fire in the big porcelain stove. I gotta read, has anybody seen a porcelain wood stove in Europe? Huh? There's nothing like it, you know? While it was still dark, Ida, the little German maid, came in and lit the fire in the big porcelain stove, and the burning pine wood roared up the chimney. Out the window, the lake lay steel gray far down below, with the snow-covered mountains bulking, jagged beyond it, and far away beyond it, the massive tooth of the Dunedin beginning to lighten the first touch of morning. It was so cold outside, the air felt like something alive as I drew a deep breath. You could swallow the air like a drink of cold water. I reached up with a boot and banged on the ceiling. "Hey, Chink, it's Christmas!" "Hooray!" came Chink's voice down from the little room under the roof of the chalet. Herself was up in a warm woolen dressing robe with the heavy goat's wool skiing socks. Chink knocked on the door. "Merry Christmas, mes enfants," he grinned. He wore the early morning garb of big woolly dressing robe and thick socks that made us all look like some monastic order. In the breakfast room we could hear the stove roaring and crackling. Herself opened the door. Against the tall white porcelain stove hung the 3 long skiing stockings, bulging and swollen with strange lumps and bulges. Around the foot of the stove were piled boxes. 2 new shiny pairs of ash skis lay alongside the slope, too tall to stand in the low-ceiling chalet room. Remember those skis? For a week we had each been making mysterious trips to the Swiss town below on the lake. Hadley and I, Chink and I, and Hadley and Chink returning after dark with strange boxes and bundles that were concealed in various parts of the chalet. Finally, we each had to make a trip alone. That was yesterday. Then last night we had taken turns on the stockings, each pledged not to sleuth. Chink had spent every Christmas since 1914 in the Army. He was our best friend. For the first time in years, it seemed like Christmas to all of us. Chink, we ate breakfast in the old, untasting, gulping, early morning Christmas way, unpacked the stockings down to the candy mouse in the toe, each made a pile of our things for future gloating. From breakfast, we rushed into our clothes and tore down the icy road in the glory of the blue-white, glistening alpine morning. The train was just pulling out. Chink and I shot the skis into the baggage car, and we all 3 swung aboard. All Switzerland was on the move. Skiing parties, men, women, boys, and girls taking the train up the mountain, wearing their tight-fitted blue caps, the girls all riding breeches and puttees, and shouting and calling out to one another. Platforms jammed. Everybody travels 3rd class in Switzerland. And on a big day like Christmas, the 3rd class overflows, and the overflow is crowded into the sacred red plush 1st class compartments. Shouting and cheering, the train crawled alongside the mountain, climbing up towards the top of the world. There was no big Christmas dinner at noon in Switzerland. Everybody was out in the mountain air with a lunch in the rucksack and the prospect of dinner at night. When the train reached the highest point it made in the mountains, everybody piled out. The stacks of skis were unsorted from the baggage car and transferred to an open flat car hooked onto a jerky little train that ran straight up the side of the mountain on cogwheels. Been on that too. And at the top we could look over the whole world, white glistening in the powder snow, and ranges of mountains stretching off in every direction. It was the top of a bobsled run that looped and turned in icy windings far below. A bob shot past all the crew moving in time, and as it rushed at express train speed, For the first turn, the crew all cried, "Gar!" And the bob roared in an icy smother around the curve and dropped off down the glassy run below. No matter how high you are in the mountains, there is always a slope going up. There were long strips of seal skin harnessed on our skis, running back from the tip to the base in a straight strip with the grain of the hair pointing back so that you pushed right ahead through the snow going uphill. If your skis had a tendency to slide back, the slipping movement would be checked by the sealskin hairs. They would slide smoothly forward, but hold fast at the end of each thrusting stride. Soon the three of us were high above the shoulder of the mountain that had seemed the top of the world. We kept going up in a single file, sliding smoothly up through the snow in a long upward 6A. We passed through the last of the pines and came out on a shelving plateau. Here came the first rundown, a half-mile sweep ahead. At the brow, the skis seemed to drop out from under, and in a hissing rush, we all three swooped down the slope like birds. On the other side, it was thrusting, uphill, steady climbing again. The sun was hot, and the sweat poured off us in the steady uphill drive. There was no place you get so tanned as in the mountains in winter, nor so hungry, nor so thirsty. Finally, we hit the lunching place, a snowed-under old log cattle barn where the peasants' cattle would shelter in the summer when this mountain was green with pasture. Everything seemed to drop off sheer below us. There at that height, about 6,200 feet, is like wine. We put on our sweaters that had been in our rucksacks coming up, unpacked the lunch and the bottle of white wine, and lay back on our rucksacks and soaked in the sun. Coming up, we had been wearing sunglasses against the glare of the snowfields, and now we took off the amber-shaded goggles and looked out on a bright new world. "I'm really too hot," herself said. Her face had burned coming up, even through the last crop of freckles and tan. But there's no record of any woman that, oh wait, you ought to use lamp black on your face, Chink suggested. But there is no record of any woman that has ever been willing to use that famous mountain climber specific against snow blindness and sunburn. Sexist. It was no time after lunch and herself's daily nap while Chink and I practiced turns and stops on the slope before the heat was gone out of the sun and it was time to start down. We took off the sealskins and waxed our skis. Then, in one long, dropping, swooping, heart-plucking rush, we were off. A 7-mile run down, and no sensation in the world that can compare with it. You do not even make the 7 miles in one run. You go as fast as you believe possible, then you go a good deal faster, then you give up all hope, then you don't know what happened, but the earth came up and over, and you sat up and untangled yourself from your skis and looked around. Usually all three of us had spilled together. Sometimes there was no one in sight. But there is no place to go except down. Down in a rushing, swooping, flying, plunging rush of fast ash blades through the powdered snow. Finally, in a rush, we came out to the road on the shoulder of the mountain where the cog-wheeled railroad had stopped coming up. Now we were all a shooting stream of skiers. All the Swiss were coming down too, shooting along the road in a seemingly endless stream. It was too steep and slippery to stop. There was nothing to do but plunge along the road as helpless as though you were in a mill race. So we went down. Herself was way ahead somewhere. We could see her blue beret occasionally before it got too dark. Down, down, down the road we went in the dusk, past chalets that were a burst of lights and Christmas merriment in the dark. Then the long line of skiers shot into the black woods, swung to one side to avoid a team and sledge coming up the road. Past more chalets, their windows alight with the candles from the Christmas trees. As we dropped past the chalet, watching nothing but the icy road and the man ahead, we heard a shout from the lighted doorway. "Captain, Captain, stop here!" It was the German-Swiss landlord of our chalet. We were running past it in the dark. Ahead of us, spilled at the turn, we found herself and we stopped in a sliding slither, knocked loose our skis, and the three of us hiked up the hill towards the lights of the chalet. The lights looked very cheerful against the dark pines of the hill, and inside was a big Christmas tree and a real Christmas turkey dinner. The table shiny with silver, the glasses tall and thin-stemmed, the bottles narrow-necked, the turkey large and brown and beautiful, the side dishes all present, And I had a serving in a new crisp apron. It was the kind of Christmas you can only get on the tropical world. So don't forget Hemingway. Go back and read him. The guy can write. Well, thank you all very much for coming. There's more cider in there. Thank you, Jim, for reading. Thank you, Rod. Pardon? Yes. Yes. Rod is going to. See, I need. You know, I need all these women to keep my life straight. So Ann has to remind me. Megan has to remind me 3 times a day. Rich. So anyway, yes, Rod's gonna do. We're gonna do at least 1 or 2 sing-alongs.
I'll do. Rick said do two, and
What?
he said do two, and I.
Now, you can do whatever you want. But do one.
I know a bunch, but there's only one that that I think is kind of a sing. Well, it is a sing along. I think everybody knows it. Well, I know everybody. You know. And it's. I'll do this. There's so many beautiful Christmas carols that and I don't usually play this one because I'm not around my grandkids. But everybody can sing, please. You're gonna sing. Okay. Marching through the snow,
Horse open sleigh, o'er the fields we go, laughing all the way. Making spirits bright, the wonderfully night, of midnight. Oh, jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride in a one-horse open sleigh. Jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride
on a one-horse open sleigh. Now, this is the verse that I didn't realize existed. And I was a youth once. Now the ground is white, go it while you're young. Take the girls tonight, sing the sleighing song. Just hit a bobtail bay, 240 if he's fast. Hitch him to an open sleigh, crack the whip. I'm sorry, you'll take the lead. That's the verse I heard. That was what we were saying. So I'll go back to this one. Jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride in a one-horse open